I now understand racism as a system, as a deeply embedded system, a system that our country was founded on and that all our institutions were created out of.
Critical race theory is a once academic theory that is now sweeping through American corporations, media, schools, and even government institutions. It says, among other things, that race is the single most important factor in life, and that racism is fundamental, woven into the fabric of everything in America.
Social justice is based on critical race theory, which basically says that race is a means simply for oppression. It is based on a Marxist notion. Marx applied it to economics. The present thing is to apply it to race. And so what you have is racial division. One part of the nation blaming the other for everything that has gone wrong is essential to social justice.
There are those that really want us to keep focusing on race so that they can exploit whatever uncomfortableness that they can get out of that person so that they can further a political agenda. It is just that cut and dry.
It's not a coincidence that critical race theory, also known as CRT, creates and exploits racial division. In fact, it's a key part of CRT's Marxist roots.
You had critical theory that was developed following World War I, which was an effort to persuade people that they were inescapably and irrepressibly oppressed. So the whole idea from cultural Marxism really stems from critical theory when they sought to investigate every vehicle, every system, every structure in Western civilization, to critically analyze it, all in an effort to persuade people that they were oppressed by the oppressors.
The so-called Frankfurt School of philosophers in the mid-20th century, who came from Germany to America during Hitler's rise, set the Marxist groundwork for critical theory, which would ultimately be applied to law, gender, race, and a host of other targets. Dr. Vodi Bakum, Dean of Theology at African Christian University in Zambia, has been an insightful critic of CRT.
When you get to the Frankfurt School and you know, critical theory, what's the whole idea there? The whole idea there, even the term critical, right? Critical is not really critique. Critical comes from the idea that we're assuming that something is wrong and something is broken, and we're finding those areas that are wrong and broken, you know, to fix. So all of it is revolutionary in its origin and in its goal. We divide the world into oppressors and oppressed. Who are you? You are, you know, this sort of intersectional conglomeration.
Indeed, the fixed and given distinction between oppressor and oppressed, with an eye toward a revolution of the oppressed, is central to Marxist philosophy, and it is the key driver in critical race theory.
You have to remember, when you're talking about cultural Marxism and sort of practical application of critical theory, if you will, you got to remember that the idea and the intention and the goal was a Marxist overthrow by force, right?
The origins of racism cannot be separated from the origins of capitalism. In order to truly be anti-racist, you also have to truly be anti-capitalist, as I write in the book. And in order to truly be anti-capitalist, you have to be anti-racist, because they're interrelated.
Saul Alinsky used to say, don't solve problems, use them. And he saw that Marxism could be applied to race. We have to simply create conflict, continual conflict, until the oppressed overcome the oppressors. And that's why critical race theory and all of these ideas of diversity studies are not intended to solve any problems.
This is not something that's created to edify, to build up, to create harmony. This is something that is a destructive mechanism, and wherever it has been invited, it consumes it like a cancerous cell and destroys it.
No reasonable person would deny the historical truth of racism in America. Things like chattel slavery and later Jim Crow laws were indeed racist, and that racism was enforced by law. But critical race theory goes much further, to say that racism still covertly and secretly permeates everything in 2021, even when there are no actual racists involved. Any disparities between persons or groups are proof of racism in action.
The way we define racism, racism is no longer animosity toward, prejudice toward a group of people, belief in the superiority of a group of people. No. Now we define racism as structural racism, systemic racism. We look at outcomes.
Part of the insidious but ingenious nature of critical race theory is that its practitioners have rigged it in such a way that it cannot be denied. In their mousetrap, to deny racism is to admit racism.
The very heartbeat of racism is denial, and the sound of that heartbeat that the individual makes is, I'm not racist.
Here's the problem. There is this systemic and this structural racism. You are a part of it and you're guilty of it. And if you don't understand that, it's because you're guilty. If you have a problem with that, it's because of white fragility. If you deny it, it's because of your desire to hold on to white supremacy, right? And so where do I go, you know?
There's one group of people that they are the oppressors, no matter what they may have done with their lives, no matter what type of life they've lived, no matter what, you are categorically an oppressor. And have a second group of people that are categorically, irrepressibly, and inescapably oppressed. And the main thing that you use to advocate this is skin color.
Ultimately, where this goes is there is no truth. There is no common ground in terms of so-called racial justice, if you will, and anti-racism. You do the work of anti-racism, but you never finish the work of anti-racism. It's a hamster wheel that you never get off of. We never complete that journey. There is no forgiveness in the cult of anti-racism, as some have called it.
CRT has led major corporations to implement mandatory training where white employees must confess their white privilege and accept their complicity in committing oppression. Schools teach revisionist history, that America was founded on white supremacy. And even a Smithsonian museum published a graphic calling out aspects of oppressive whiteness, including emphasis on the scientific method and objective, rational, linear thinking. Even the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff defended teaching CRT to West Point cadets.
I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it.
Many Christian leaders are now calling upon the church to stand against this false and dangerous ideology.
Utilizing something that God has given us, like the makeup of who we are, in an effort to separate us and to create these impenetrable wedges between the populace, to have one group pointing a finger at another group so that we consistently are at each other's throats in order to divide us as a nation, is diabolical and it's wicked. Acts 17 says it very plainly that our Lord made all mankind from one blood. Every nation on the earth, the Greek word there in Acts chapter 17, verse 26 is ethnos, so we get our English word ethnicity from. Every ethnicity on the face of the earth comes from the exact same ancestral heritage.
Christianity says this: we don't really have a skin problem, we have a sin problem, and that is to be met at the foot of the cross. So as long as we keep blaming one another and shouting at one another, we aren't going to be able to make very good progress in terms of race relations. The church should lead the way.
I think we very specifically have to heed Paul's words that we destroy arguments, we destroy lofty opinions, we destroy speculations. We have to identify and oppose these faulty ideologies. We have a biblical obligation to do so. And then we take every thought captive.
This country is not racist, and I've heard it. Oh, Sunday morning is the most segregated hour in America. No, Sunday morning is the most integrated hour in the world. No, this is a lie. Christianity is universal. The beautiful thing about Christ is he really doesn't care what color we are, what our backgrounds are. He will save us. And so it works for everybody.